Bam! What's up, folks? My name is Justin Garcia, also known as Master Chim, and welcome to the Warrior Stream. I'm here every week at noon Eastern Standard Time, taking a topic deep dive and having a good time while doing it, usually joined by a solid core group of listeners, and I appreciate them for doing so. Before we get into it today, let's take care of the housekeeping. Number one, if you're not getting my email, that is the one thing I need everybody to do. It's the priority in terms of my content and where I'm sort of driving people to. Get on my email list. You can go to masterchimletter.com. You can go to the link in the description. I'm currently streaming on YouTube and a couple of different Facebook pages. So wherever you're watching, there's going to be a link there for the Master Chim Letter, which is my daily free email newsletter. Today we have a pretty solid topic talking about loyalty. It is a often misunderstood concept, one that I talk about a great deal. It is, at the core of a lot of the obstacles that a lot of men face in my coaching programs, in my mastermind groups. It is a perennial issue for men navigating this road of loyalty. I would say there was a time much earlier in the history of man where loyalty was not as much of an issue because we tended to sort of exist and live our lives in homogenous societies, groups that everybody pretty much was going to sink or swim together. So there used to be a much more organically grown drive toward investing in one another. That is no longer the case, or at least it's much lesser so the case these days. And how we sort of navigate those dynamics in a modern society and civilization is something of an issue, right? So before we get into it, who do we got here? We got my man Jesse. What's up, Jesse? Aaron, good to see you. She says, my friend from down south, we've been getting stuff ready to move back home, and I've not yet read the email. All right. You are forgiven. Wantu, what's up, brother man? Good to see you. Jamie, what's going on? You're on Saxa, good to see you. Grungo, good to see you. All right, got a good group. So let's get into it. So when I sent the email today, of course, I don't have it prompted, right? But basically, my saying a couple of years ago, I put out loyalty is an investment, not a debt. People, the pushback that I got was, well, if I'm, if I do something for somebody and, they're not, reciprocating in some way that shows that they're not loyal, or how could they be so disloyal after everything I've done for them? And, it's, people conflate a lot of issues, a lot of these dynamics that we're subjected to in our relationships. If we don't articulate and understand what each individual one of them is, then the tendency is to sort of just broad brush, conflate a bunch of stuff, and basically just sit there and advocate for your better outcome. It's like, well, how could he do this for me or to me? Because if he had done this other thing, I would have been better off. And that is usually what I found it came down to. What did somebody want to do, or what did somebody want somebody else to do to wind up with them having the better outcome as a result? Loyalty gets thrown in there. Loyalty is a great term to throw around in a relationship or in a social community, a network, because it also has a bunch of pressure attached to it. Nobody wants a reputation for being disloyal, right? So it's just a very heavy term. And if we don't understand exactly what it means and its implications, not only are we going to go about it the wrong way when handling it, but we're also subjected to other people's shortcomings. And we want to be able to know what they are before we wind up suffering a consequence because of it. So all that being said, two on Tom. What's up, brother man? Good to see you. Let's get into it. So I sent this morning the email saying that I was going to have 6 things that you should know about loyalty. Obviously, the title of today's talk is the same. So let's get into it. I did have a couple of minutes to prep these. So let me open this up. And let's get on to number 1. Loyalty is earned, not owed. So this ties into loyalty as an investment, not a debt, but it's just going to spotlight one aspect of that. Just because somebody was a part of your past doesn't mean that they automatically deserve a spot in your future. Loyalty is a term that refers to the present tense. It's something that we are doing starting now. It is not a debt from the sort of struggles and obstacles that we faced yesterday. When we look at the relationships that we have amongst the people that we're connected to, they should continue to see us as a good idea, right? And I've used that phrase before. A good idea for what? For whatever being associated to you means to them at the given time. I know that if I wanted to become an actor, I know some famous actor people. I might want to reach out to them and ask them for their guidance. Because I don't want to be an actor, does that mean that I have less of a value or use for them? Well, yes, it does. Does it mean that I'm less loyal to them because of that? No. Why? Because I still represent my values, my resources, my capabilities, my assets. And should they come to me and ask me for something, I would be willing to help them. I would think that these friends of mine, if I needed that help, they would also do it. So I am loyal in a sense that I continue to see them as a good investment, and our alliance remains stable as a result of me seeing them as a good investment. That is where loyalty begins to confuse people. It is not because of past deeds. I've said before, if your past deeds have a debt put on somebody, you would need a contract for that. The expectation that somebody is going to reciprocate, if you think about it, is pretty tyrannical. I'm going to do this thing for somebody, and therefore I could make sure that they do this for me. And it sort of does not take into consideration what the other person's intentions are, what they want to do, or their very autonomy itself. If I do something for you and it compels you to do something for me, I'm in control of your actions. That can't make sense, right? So, or at least we can call it for what it is, which is tyrannical. So, number 1, loyalty is earned. It is not owed. Let's see. Johnny Groove, what's up, brother, man? Tuan Tom writes, loyalty should relate to someone's consistency. We should be consistent to our principles and virtues, not necessarily people. So Tuan Tom brings up a good point. And when I talk about respect, the idea or the concept of respect, it is being able to see an identity consistently over time. If you look at the word spect as a cognate of relating to seeing something, spectacles, spectators, etc. Being repetitive, something that's done over and over again. So to see somebody's character or identity over and over again makes them respectable. We respect people when we assign a consistent value to who they are. If we understand what that consistent value is, that's when we could decide whether or not we see that value as a good investment. And that's where loyalty starts to become, a factor, right? Corey, what's up, brother, man? Good to see you. Let's get to number 2. So number 1, loyalty is earned, not owed. Number 2, pain isn't the master. Pain can be a driver, the impetus, a catalyst for growth, but that does not mean that it deserves credit. You can grow stronger through adversity without honoring or glorifying the source of that adversity. The reason we have to be careful in the credit we assign to those things that made us grow is we have to also understand that if we did not react the way we did to that catalyst, we would probably be destroyed or at least, brought down significantly in all the ways that matter. If something's out to cause us pain, our reaction determines the outcome. Pain is not the master, and I say that in the context of a master and apprentice. Pain will teach plenty of lessons, but with absolutely no regard for your better outcome. So we have to assign credit where it is appropriately assigned, which is on us, on our reaction. You can't mistake trauma for being a teacher when it was simply the backdrop or the terrain of the experience. So when I see people who look at a scenario or even an alliance and an ally who is a great source of pain, but they could assign a correlation between them becoming stronger and this alliance, it does not mean that we are supposed to glorify that individual, right? Pain itself is not the teacher. It gives us the ability to teach ourselves, right? So pain is not the master. Judge Cohen, what's up, brother, man? Good to see you. Let's get down to number 3. Resilience isn't gratitude. Resilience isn't gratitude. Now, this overlaps somewhat with pain not being a catalyst, because the pain itself is not the thing that made us grow. It inspired us or drove us to react in a way that wound up, it resulted in growth. We get credit for that, for the strength that we built from pain. In this one, we're assigning it now to the identity, where we're talking about the identity that caused the pain. So whereas we don't give the pain credit for the strength that we got as a result, we are also not to be grateful, because when given pain or exposed to pain by an individual, we wound up making that decision to become stronger. Being resilient against hardship doesn't mean that we owe loyalty to the very thing that created the hardship in the first place. That is it's sort of like the confusion of a survivor. You know, they look at what they went through and how they wound up becoming better because of it, and they want to assign credit and a gratitude to the individual that created it. The problem is, you know, you are not supposed to be a survivor, right? Even the label of using the term survivor implies that there was something that was going to destroy you or destroy something about you. And you wound up turning the tide. You wound up resisting and going the opposite way. So if there would be something that would see your downfall, would be the driver of your downfall, we should never be gratitude for those intentions that identity represented, right? I hope that makes sense. So number 3, resilience is gratitude. Just to catch up from step 1. It is hot in here. Turning off my heater. So we said, number 1, loyalty is earned, not owed. Number 2, pain is not the master. Number 3, resilience isn't gratitude. Let's get into number 4. Situational versus archetypal loyalty. I've spoken on this before, and there's a distinction that I make between an individual who is loyal to an alliance or a situation and an individual who is more as an archetype, a loyal individual. When somebody is situationally loyal, they see that the alliance is the alliance that they happen to be connected to, and the ally on the other side of it by proxy, is resulting in a positive outcome. The synergy that maybe drove the reason to have the alliance in the first place is continuing to be there, and they see this as something that is productive, and they continue to invest resources and protect the integrity of that alliance. They are situationally loyal. There is a point where if we do not identify somebody who is situationally loyal, we tend to sort of expect the second type of loyalty that I'm getting into here, which is archetypal loyalty. So when somebody is the archetype of a loyal person, what that means is whenever somebody invests in them, they self-impose a debt of reciprocity. I am somebody who I would say is archetypally loyal. Tuan Tom, archetypally loyal. Judge Cohen, archetypally loyal. I know these individuals in the real world. I know that they have that value. What that means is when you do something for them, they're looking to do something for you. When you don't do something for them, they're still looking to do something for you. Now, the difference between the two of them is if you are in a alliance with an individual who is not an archetypal loyal person, but they are loyal to the alliance, when the synergy of that alliance falls by the wayside, we wind up caught in this position where we still expect them to be loyal to us, the individual. And therein lies the problem. In my program that I went over in January, my event, Forge Your Cult, which I'm writing, it's the next book that I'm writing. A part of that is a concept called, it has concept in it, conduits over concepts, right? I don't want to let too much of the cat out the bag with the upcoming book, but basically there's a difference between somebody who is loyal to a concept and somebody who is loyal to a person or the conduit. When you have an individual who has a situational level of loyalty, we have to not place any more expectations than what that implies. Because they're getting the synergy of this alliance, they are going to continue to invest in said alliance. As soon as the alliance dissipates or the synergy is no longer there, we should place no expectation on them to continue to invest in us at the same rate. Now, sure, it is good practice to expect, or not to expect, but to want somebody to downgrade the alliance, so that the door is always open, so to speak. The bridge is always built, so to speak, with some alliance codes stuff that I've spoken about in the past. But we shouldn't place that expectation on them. It's like the teenager, 19 years old, 18 years old, goes to his first strip club. And so long as he's putting singles in the stripper's, underwear, do they call it underwear? Whatever it is. I'm not a fan of strip clubs. As long as they're putting money, the girl's giving him all the attention in the world. But as soon as the guy runs out of money, the girl's like, okay, have a nice life. And the guy might not have the formulas to be able to process that. And there's some expectation. Hey, she treated me like she didn't even know me. Well, yeah, you were giving her money. She's here to get money. Like, we understand, being a little bit older, the crowd that's watching this, what those dynamics are. But the 18-year-old, that's his first time in a strip club, he might have no idea. There's a difference between the situational loyalty and the archetypal loyalty. And, in all my experience, coaching people and employing people, it was something that I had to learn. Right? I was not very good at any of these dynamics. It's one of the reasons I think I have a pretty good grasp of them now, is because I managed to fuck them up so impressively over the last 20-something years, being a business owner and a martial arts coach, right? So situational versus archetypal loyalty. All right. Jamie writes, sounds like implicit loyalty versus explicit loyalty assumed rather than loyalty obliged. Absolutely. The terminology certainly starts to create the dichotomy that I'm trying to illustrate. I think the very specific terminology that I'm using gives people a little bit more accessibility to not fall victim to not understanding it. I can't tell you how many times somebody is archetypally loyal, and they're loyal beyond a situational agreement where they should not have been. It is the person, I'm going to make up something here. You're helping, you worked at a store, the store owner pays you, you stopped working there, but you still go and help them out because you want him to do well, but he's not paying you anymore. And it's like that is somebody who is archetypally loyal, where they tend to now risk removing resources or wasting resources in alliances that won't create a positive return for those. So if a thing that I've done in the past is I had MMA fighters and I would spend time training MMA fighters. There was a certain point where I saw that the MMA fighter, I was more invested in their success than they were. And I would continue to fix their deficiencies, continue to train them. And it was almost like, well, I'm their trainer, they're my student, I'm going to continue to make them better. But they were no longer engaged in the alliance at the level that we were at one point in the past. Well, that was energy, resources more generally that I could have invested elsewhere. And because I have this tendency to be loyal and to continue to invest in my allies, I had a tough time understanding way back when it was time to, okay, I have to downgrade on my end and take these resources and put them someplace else where they could be more effective, right? Jan Saxa asks, how does that line up in a marriage? Well, ironically, here's the difference in a marriage. In a marriage, there's a contract, right? So that's one of the things. It sounds a little cold, but just, to give me the slack to discuss it, for a moment. It's why there's such a power in an oath. It's because we are contracting ourselves in the eyes of everybody that matters under penalty of, consequence from those same people, that we are going to abide by this promise that we're making. In a marriage, you have an individual who ideally is archetypally loyal. They see themselves as, I'm going to continue to invest in my partner. Marriages will fare very well when individuals are looking at it that way from both sides. The problem occurs when only one person is investing at that level and the other person is not investing at that level and tends to invest less. The synergy not only goes away, but now the individual who is loyal tends to be exploited, further damaging the dynamic of the relationship. Both people should be investing at a level where there is a sacrifice, an inherent sacrifice. I'm more worried, or worried's not a strong word, more concerned and invested in the positive outcome and success of my wife and my children than I am myself. It doesn't mean that I don't prioritize taking care of myself first in order to help them. It just means that I am not looking to have personal victories where I see victories to be had for my wife and my children. Right? I hope that makes sense. So that is one of the differences, in fact, that there is a contract, in a marriage. It's kind of almost why it's there also, right? Worth mentioning. Jamie writes, marriage has explicit obligation and sworn loyalty. That's right. Tom writes, one of the most significant problems with cowards is there's no consistency to loyalty at all, or they're always consistently loyal to just their own skin. And I think that latter part is where I would lead with it. They're completely loyal to themselves. And it's the problem, I would say, when we don't understand the situation and archetypal loyalty, and obviously we could add complexity to it depending on the applications we're discussing. But when do we peg somebody as being a coward? When do we see somebody as misrepresenting themselves fraudulently? When are they acting traitorously? And I would say, without getting into the specifics, it's just a sort of support for the idea of studying these dynamics in the first place, because we want to be able to sort of call a spade when we see that. You know what I mean? But if we don't have a criteria, we're usually following metrics that are more connected to how we feel than what's happening on the ground, All right. So far we have number 1, loyalty is earned, not owed. Number 2, pain isn't the master. Number 3, resilience isn't gratitude. Number 4, situational versus archetypal loyalty. Let's get to number 5, loyalty or submission. So if loyalty is not reciprocated, you are basically submitting to another person's mission. So what do I mean by that? True loyalty, loyalty, period, right, involves mutual value. It is an investment in the synergy of the alliance, investment in the alliance to create that synergy, I should say. Otherwise, it's just a one-sided arrangement with the sort of mask of an alliance, a mask of mutualism. When an individual is loyal, when both parties are loyal, there is a concern in the health or the integrity of the alliance that falls under the heading of an existential issue for each party involved. If me and my best friend start a business together, he is going to benefit from the business's success, as I will benefit from the business's success. And in order to make sure the business is successful, I also understand that I am going to suffer a consequence if it's not successful. I am going to invest to make sure the business is successful, sometimes without making sure that he does an equitable amount or that he's doing as much as I am. And when you start overly concerning yourself about the output of other people, we tend to sort of get away from the idea of two people being completely invested and loyal to the outcome. So the opposite of that is when one individual is not doing it at all, not investing at all, but we, or the other ally continues to. And I would say that is a form of submission. If I'm looking at an investment as something that, again, is going to give me a positive return, but I've ignored that return and just sort of anchored myself to the habit of performing the alliance, right? Then it just begs the question of what I'm in the alliance for. I'll give you an example. In trading, and I'm not into day trading or anything. I was reading Nassim Taleb, and he made this comment. I'd written somewhere that a trader, it's easier for a trader to divorce his wife than it is his position, right? And he says that a lot of traders, what they'll do is when their short-term intentions, I will say, don't pan out, they suddenly start to say, well, they're actually taking a long position. It's like they were in this for some quick money, a quick turnaround, but because the outcome didn't happen properly, they start to say, well, actually, I think it's a good idea and it's this sort of sunk cost fallacy. It's just an aversion to sort of cutting the losses. And I think that we become susceptible in alliances when somebody is not any longer holding up their end of the bargain, and at the tail end of anything that you could have tried to alleviate that, they're still not doing it. To continue at that point is a form of submission, right? And it wouldn't fall under the guise of loyalty, I would say, right? So loyalty or submission. And let's get to the last point I want to make here. Number 6, misplaced loyalty kills growth, right? And if anything, this is the one this is what you got to take home with you at the end of this talk and apply it to the alliances you have. Apply it to anybody that currently receives your loyalty. See, the thing is, there are alliances that we have whereby the other ally is not investing equitably as we are. They're not doing their job. The synergy might not be there. But the nature of the alliance is commensal, right? So commensal, if you guys have watched my parasite killer video, you understand the distinction, and it's based in biology. But basically, a commensal alliance is when your ally is experiencing a benefit being connected to you, but you are not receiving a benefit, but it's also not costing you anything. The example I use in the video, which is my easy example for this idea, is if I'm running a martial arts school that could fit, let's say, 20 people on the mat, and I have 10 people on the mat, and there's an 11th student that stopped paying, but he continues to show up. If I say, yeah, well, the mat's not packed, I could fit him, I could fit 20, it's only 11, like it doesn't matter, whether he pays or not, I don't care. It doesn't cost me anything. Commensal relationships always devolve into parasitic ones. At some point, it will cost me. And if I try to engage that ally at that point, chances are he will resent me for raising the criteria that he needs to comply to, right? We all know all these times where we help people out, and at some point we ask them to sort of pull their weight, and they resent us for it, right? And we should know better, right? Because it is ultimately misplaced growth. Misplaced loyalty. So where number 6 comes in is when we allow for these alliances, these misplaced loyalty type alliances, it takes away resources, time, energy, resources that could be invested in our growth. So just because you're not suffering being connected to somebody who I would say you have a misplaced loyalty for, that does not mean that the loyalty is any less misplaced. You don't have to suffer in a way that you could feel it. The suffering could be in the form of the opportunity cost, right? The lost opportunity that being connected to this individual is, right? And that's why misplaced loyalty kills growth, right? So let me go over the 6 again. And this is loyalty, 6 things you need to know. Number 1, loyalty is earned, not owed. Just because somebody was part of your past doesn't mean they deserve a place in your future. Number 2, pain isn't the master. You can grow stronger through adversity without glorifying the pain. Don't mistake trauma for a teacher. It was merely the backdrop. It was merely the terrain that you responded positively from or positively to. Number 3, resilience isn't gratitude. Just because you became resilient and persevered through hardship and wound up stronger because of it, does not mean that you now owe a debt of gratitude to the creator of that hardship. Just because you are resilient does not mean you're supposed to be grateful to the person you were resilient from. Number 4, situational versus archetypal loyalty. There is a nature in some people to self-impose a debt when they're invested in. Somebody does something for me, I feel compelled to do something for them. I've spoken before about my neighbor, old man Joe. We had given him a thing of lasagna on I think it was Thanksgiving, and the next week he presented my wife with a custom-made cutting board, and he's like a master woodworker, craftsman, and he is an archetypal loyal person. It wasn't that he felt there was a sort of debt that we imposed. He self-imposed that debt. Situational is different. Situational is the stripper who's smiling and dancing so long as you're putting dollars in her underwear. You run out of that money, we should understand the loyalty is going to end along with it. Number 5, is it loyalty or is it submission? Some people will continue to invest in an alliance even when the other party has stopped. And if you are continuing to invest in an alliance where the other party is no longer following their role, that is a form of submission. You are now continuing to invest your resources at the benefit or for the benefit of the other party. You are submitting to him, and that's how I would describe it. And finally, number 6, misplaced loyalty kills growth. Just because you are not suffering does not mean your loyalty is any less misplaced. It's very hard to measure and quantify the cost of lost opportunities. a good way to sort of protect us from, losing those opportunities and wasting those opportunities is to understand the dynamics around the concept of loyalty. All right, guys. Man, that was good. That was pretty tight. Time-wise, we went over everything I wanted to. A good group as usual. I always appreciate you guys participating. Loyalty is something that I am very, very invested in understanding. One of the biggest reasons is because I've fucked it up so often in so many different ways, during my life. And it was probably one of on the short list of things that I knew I needed to get better at. So I needed to study it. I needed to understand these dynamics. Sometimes, me, like a lot of men, I have a fire, I have a rage, I have a passion that could cause more damage than it ever builds, things in my life. And we have the responsibility to be able to learn to harness that. And loyalty is a great place to start. All right. Well, I appreciate you guys. Let's call it there. Again, if you guys have not signed up for my emails, please do so. Go to masterchimletter.com. These are the types of things that I like talking about. I always keep everybody updated with what's going on with me as well. I appreciate you. I will see you guys next week. And as always, brothers and sisters, pressure to power.